What's up, everybody? How are things? I forgot to double check my mic volume before I started, and obviously my camera position as well. That's good enough. I guess we'll see when we get to the other screen. But anyway, hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm gonna turn up my gain a little bit because it looks like it could use some. Testing 1 2. Sweet. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It's having a good Sunday. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with me today. I've gotten a lot of work done on my Psychophage, and she's coming along. In fact, she is battle ready. But today, I want to spend some time hanging out with you guys and trying to get the highlights down. So I finally will have a centerpiece for both my armies. Like, as you guys know, my captain's already done. And I just need a centerpiece for my Tyranid army, which is my Psychophage. I'm also getting some material together. I've been recording as I've painted her up, so maybe I will put a video together of how I did it up until this point, but I'm not really sure if I'm going to do that because I think it's going to be a lot of work, but it should be fun. We'll see. Okay, well, I don't have any paint ready, but I do. I have it ready. I just don't have it on my web palette yet. So we'll get started on. First, I'm going to show her to you. She's looking pretty awesome. Okay, there she is. Well, that's her butt anyway. I decided I'm going to keep it on autofocus because me moving it around really messed with the focus on the other ones. If you have any trouble hearing me or seeing what I'm doing, just let me know in the chat. I'm going to try to engage with you guys and keep an eye on that. So, but this is her. This is what she looks like. Get my I don't know if that light's gonna be in my way when I paint or not. We'll see. It might be. That's probably better. Okay. But I got the majority of. I got all the base coats done. I put on some shadows. Got all the details of her teeth done. I did go ahead and highlight. Well, I did some basic highlights on the rocks just to make it look decent. I wonder if that there behind this rebar is a hair, a gray hair, or a piece of coconut fiber that I've left there. I'm not sure. Let me see something else. It's hard to see. What I'm doing with my mic right there. Sorry for all the adjustments I'm making here, guys. Bear with me. It's fine. But yeah, I got some bits of mini rebar there. Got this little skull on this side. I had a lot of fun doing the base for this. It's really my first attempt at a non-standard flat base. A lot of these, that's actually a birch seed to make it look like a leaf, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm going to get some more of those down once all the painting's done, because I've discovered that I need to super glue those down. in order to make sure they stay. Got a mustache hair hanging. Should have done a trim before the stream today, but that's okay. Alright, but today mainly I'm going to try to get some highlights on this carapace because it seems very flat without highlights. So we're going to do that today. And hopefully I can get this camera positioned in a spot where you can see what I'm doing fairly easy. Sorry for all the jerking around. But we will get her focused here. And get me focused. There we go. But she's looking so pretty. I'm so excited about her. Alright. Set her down for a second. So for the carapace, I used Nagaroth Knight for the base. So I'm going to put some of that onto my palette to mix into some Xerius Purple. Once I get that down, I'm going to do some edge highlights and hopefully not to mess up our carapace too much with some Slaanesh Gray. And that is the plan for today. I haven't done much prepping at all as far as the paints go, so I'm going to mix it up over here. I bought me this handy dandy vortex mixer for when it's time to paint. And it kind of shakes my camera up a little bit, but that's okay. Gets it good and smoothed out a little bit. I am excited to once again break out my Kolinsky brushes. They're a lot of fun. I don't use them very much because they're more expensive. I have a couple of brands that been using. Golden Maple, I think, was the first ones I got. I can't remember. I like them. I'm going to start with a size 1 and see if I can make that work. See that focus, even with the autofocus on, it's gross. I just have to keep an eye on it, I guess. Get some of this purple onto the palette. I actually don't think I'm going to use too much of that. Just enough to kind of slowly bring in Xerius Purple. My water's right next to the mic, so I don't know if that's annoying or satisfying, but you're going to hear it, I guess. Since I last streamed, I also got a new vape. It's hopefully not as loud on the stream. Because, yes, unfortunately, I'm still addicted to nicotine. That's okay, though. One day I'll be nicotine-free. That's the goal, anyway. A little more vibration. But, yeah, hopefully everybody had a great weekend. Done a lot of gaming this weekend. been on a big Sea of Thieves kick. Me and my friends got the Blunder Pass this season, so we're knocking it out. Not necessarily for the rewards on the Blunder Pass, but just to have a goal, something to do. Been playing a little bit of Monster Hunter. It's hard for me to really enjoy single-player games lately. Because most of the time I sit down to game, I want to play with my friends. Alright, we'll get some of this purple down here on the palette. Now I'm going to need a lot more of this, I can tell you. This is the thing about the GW pots is I don't like this method of getting paint out now that I had more practice, and I'm really grateful for the tutorials and the paint satin finish. The pots though annoy me. I'd much rather have them in a dropper bottle, I believe. But I've also learned that that is not an uncommon belief or opinion within the hobby. So at least I'm not alone in that opinion. I'll go ahead and get some gray on my palette too, just so we don't have to mess with it later. I was watching another painter, and just one of the random videos of hers that came out was talking about keeping her brushes clean, and I realized that at least with her, I clean my brushes after every session. I don't know if that's a common practice, but with her it wasn't. She said it's best, but at least once a week, so apparently she doesn't get around to cleaning it after every session like I do. It is tedious, but I like having clean brushes. Oh, I'm sending out messages to folks to join in, come hang out. But for some reason, this sucker is not showing up on my studio app, which makes it easier for me to share on my phone. And I don't have direct feedback anywhere on my screens, so hopefully everything's coming through fine. I'm actually going out to the interwebs. Just let me know in the chat if everything's good or not. Either way, I want to know. This part is the Slanesh gray. When I get to the little thin highlights, the edge highlights, and the markings I plan on making, that's the part that's going to make me nervous. But I've put this lady off enough. It's time to get her done. I've had a pretty uneventful week. Of course, I've had work. But I've been busy with like running errands for family and stuff, so I haven't had much me time until yesterday. And all I did was pretty much game and sleep, which was nice. So today is a paint day. I'm gonna have to do chores later, but alright, well, let's get started on this lady. I guess I should... I'm gonna start down here, I reckon. So the light is mainly going to be coming from this direction. So, but this first highlight I definitely want to put on here anyway. Just not as prominent, I guess, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how I decide to do this side. I'm just going to go, yeah, I am going to get just a little bit of this purple. Teeny bit of water. Thin that down a bit. I'm scared. So I guess it would be here, be our first line of a highlight. I've also learned that I don't know if, because I'm so hyper focused, I guess, on the details, that I take longer than the majority of the people in the hobby. I'm okay with that, especially with these first ones that I've done, because I'm enjoying the process and and they're my centerpieces of the army, so I want them to look nice. I'm still kind of learning how the highlights need to go. Oh, balls. It's alright, I'll come back and fix that later. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the carapace first, because I knew it might get messy. But I've gotten some paint on the tippy top of that claw. That's okay. It's fine. Just a little bit of highlight to bring out the texture and make it not as flat when it's on the tabletop. I'm kind of bummed that I haven't actually got to play yet, but at the same time, like I said, I really enjoyed the process of painting. So but once I get this done, I'll be able to do like a scenario that came with the starter kit of just the two, my captain and this lovely lady. Captain Motherfucker Jones has just been sitting on the shelf waiting for someone to fight. I did get some dice, so I'm ready to play as soon as I'm able. Not a full match, but that's okay too. I'm just gonna be ready to go when it's time. Just as of now, just enjoying the painting and learning how highlights work has been a challenge, but I let myself feel better by realizing you don't have to be 100% accurate with the physics of light as long as it looks cool. Especially with the edge highlighting. Speaking of edge highlighting, we're going to get the edge of these scales here, as well as those ridges. I'm trying not to obsess about the details as much as I was with the captain. Not only because, yeah, you can cover them up, fix them, but also because I will drive myself nuts if I do that. And I don't want a sharp edge there, so that's why I'm coming across, giving a little bit of flare outs here on this highlight. I'm liking how it's turning out, though. It's I wish I was pulling down towards myself, though. Here we go. Anywhere there's a groove, I'm going to take it all the way to the tip, because that's where I'm going to be putting the gray a little bit longer, like I did on the carapace for the base of Motherfucker Jones. I don't know if I'm just going to leave this layer as is or try to do a glaze to try to get a little better gradation, a little better transition. I don't know. We'll see as we go along and see how I feel. Let me know in the chat what you think, if that is a good enough transition as is, or if I need to try to go in with a little lighter glaze to try to ease that transition. I think it's looking pretty subtle. Nothing too shocking with it, so that's good, I feel. This particular scale seems pretty smooth, so I'm just going to do the edges on it. And again, I just realized I don't want that sharp edge. So I'm going to come from this direction and give it those little spikes. I'll try to do the same here without flooding that area with this color. I really like the tip of these brushes. They were worth the investment for the highlighting portion of the painting. It's just funny because I've been getting to where when I get it, like what I guess they would call battle ready, the stage right before this, I'm really happy with it. So now I'm getting more comfortable, I guess, with the idea of messing up on this stage or not trying to stress myself out because it looks good. And I really gotta not make myself paint because I'm afraid. So I think we'll go down here. And I want to cover quite a bit of this area because, like I said, I am going to be coming in with that gray in spots. But if I do say so myself, for my second attempt at just highlighting, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I know I've got a lot of friends out there that play the game that are ready for me to have an army ready, but I'm just not there yet, guys. Sorry. My brother said he would play with me too, so once I get this lady done, we'll have something to test out at least, to try to start to learn the basics of the rules. Getting the back of this is going to be a pain. I wonder if I can come at it from this direction. That worked. Not bad, not bad. I just realized I need to be careful on my thumbnails so I'm not scraping paint off elsewhere. Kind of like coming at it from this direction, it helped. Been thinking a bit about my next army. Thinking ahead. I've got, you know, the Tyranids, and I'll be doing the Space Marines. I haven't committed to what my third choice is going to be. But I've got some ideas. I got a chance to actually go to a Warhammer store this week. So that was cool. I talked to the guy there, and he gave me some insights on some of the armies I was thinking about. He said the orcs are pretty good if they're fun to play, and if you don't care about winning or losing, they're a lot of fun. So that appeals to me, because I'm not going to be super competitive with the game, and I do want to have fun, and plus the orcs just seem funny. So that seems like a way to go for me. But I like the Battle Sisters, I like the look of them. I think they'd be fun to paint. I talked to him about them as well, and he said they play a lot like Space Marines, but I acted like I knew what he was talking about, but I never have played Space Marines, so I was like, oh yeah, cool. Man, these front little carapace panels are stumping me a little bit as far as how the light would hit, but I think I'm getting the gist of it. A little bit of controlled chaos. Just trying to do whatever looks cool. Looks right. This color, I'm surprised. I don't know, it may seem like more of a starch difference to you guys because I am red-green colorblind and the hues of the purple may escape me. I don't know. I never really know how a color affects me. Just people tell me how I'm wrong. But that's okay. I hope I didn't. Yeah, I don't know if I messed up the separation there on that or not. We'll see. I'll just get the edge at the bottom edge of this one. I know you can't really see it with that camera angle, but I will spin it around here so you can see it here in a second. I don't know if I should have done that. But it still looks okay. Alright, now let's tackle the top part here. Hey, what's up? Yeah, tell Tammy I miss her too. Looking forward to seeing her tomorrow. Hopefully I get to see her tomorrow. How is your Sunday? Hopefully you're having a good day. Where did I leave off? So I've got this front part here, and now I'm gonna make sure my tip's good. That's the other thing. I have pretty much foregone the use of gloves when I paint because I don't know, I still do sometimes. But I realized how unnecessary they really are, unless I'm trying to avoid fingerprints from where I'm holding it. But this lady is already on her base, and I'm just handling the base as much as I can instead of grabbing onto the model itself. Nice. Well, I hope you have safe travels. I've been to Indy, which is a bit of a drive for me, a couple times in the past 8 days, so I've had a lot of driving on my agenda. One wasn't planned, but that's okay. I don't mind. As long as I'm not tired, I don't mind driving or traveling. If I'm flying, I don't mind being tired. Oh, where'd I leave off? Okay, there it is. I'm trying a new camera angle as well. Let me know what you think. I think it's much better than the angle I had before. I think you can see more of what I'm doing. And hopefully I'll be able to use it to edit either just the highlights of the stream or include it in my how-to when I finish this model. Been watching a lot of yeah, this is a psychophage, part of the Tyranids. So the Tyranids are a bug-like alien species that they're pretty much just biomass consumers. So they eat whatever they come across and kind of absorb it into their genealogy. So they are the great devourer. They just eat. Now that's probably the like in the Warhammer universe. Of course, humanity is anti anything alien. But these are the most stereotypical science fiction bad guy. I feel like bug aliens, and I don't see how they could think anything redeemable, so they've got to be bad guys, right? Not that I would ever question humanity's in the world of 40K's decision on what's good or bad, because the Emperor knows best always. But yeah, this is an alien. She eats anything. She's currently got a Space Marine's arm, so that kind of gives you an idea of the scale of her. She's small on my hands, but in the universe, that's a dude's arm. And most space Marines, I think on the smaller end, are like 7 feet tall. So that's how big this lady is. I know you're not supposed to call ladies big, but she doesn't mind. She likes being scary. I'm liking how this highlight is turning out. Really brings out the edges on this and makes it so you can see the details of the model much better. I'm glad I didn't stop with just being battle ready with her. I'm going to make her parade ready. That's what my Citadel app tells me it's called. When I was doing my Space Marine, though, I focused on each layer of highlight instead of each color, which with her, what I'm trying to do is like just focus balls. I just painted that leg, but that's okay. With her, I'm going to focus on color sections, which I think is a better way to go about it. It's going to be faster. And the more I paint, the better I feel like I'm going to be at batch painting. The next thing I'm going to make is a unit of Space Marine Terminators. So I'm going to be trying to paint 4, I think if it's 4 or 5 Space Marines all at once. Just doing one step at a time. See how I like doing that. I don't know how much I'm going to focus on speed when I do an army, but I'm going to have to at some point just to get the army done, considering how long it's taken me to get my captain and this lady done. Wow, that's turned out a lot better than I expected. Oh, I missed a spot here, though. Eventually, I'm going to make her mouth a little slimy and have some stringy blood and goop coming from the arm and going into her mouth. I'm thinking like from here to her tongue, and then have blood dripping down onto the base. That's going to be a finishing touch, but it's something I want to try out because I'll get to use with some UV resin and some Uhu glue and some other techniques to try to just make her look as gruesome as possible. For the most part, I've enjoyed the standard GW technique where you put the base coat on and then you put what's called a shade on there, and that's where all the darker colors come in. I'm trying to see, there was an example where it pooled too much. But basically the shade fills in the recesses and keeps it from just looking like a flat color. I did a Nolan Oil shade, which is black, on the carapace, and in the claws, and then I did an earth shade, which is like the mud on the stone, which made the stone pretty dark. What's my favorite painting? As in flat painting, I'm assuming. Let's see. I think man, I'm gonna sound ignorant here because I want to say Van Gogh, I think, is the one that did the sunflowers. That's what I'm gonna say. If I'm wrong, let me know. Or is it Da Vinci? I don't know. Anyway, I think it was Van Gogh, Vincent Van Gogh. They did an exhibit at a local museum of all his artwork. I liked that. I like his sunflowers probably the most. Starry Night is cool. But as far as miniature painters, there's a few that I follow that I really enjoy. I like Zamiko, Squidmar. They're both very talented miniature painters. Squidmar's videos to me are more geared like a TV show, entertainment realm. But he does some how-to stuff too and some tips. I've seen with Zamiko, it's mostly how-to and tips. But they're both very talented artists. I like their stuff. My figure. I mean, I think this lady is going to be my favorite so far. The captain that I made was pretty good. But the other two that I've done so far were just me basically learning how to do this. So they're pretty basic. I think I've had the most fun painting my Psychophage. I don't know if it's because I've had so much practice, and I say so much, but it's not like a ton. But I've had more practice before painting her. But she's also very detailed. Those teeth were a real pain. I couldn't get them as detailed, perfect as I wanted to, but I had to convince myself it was okay. I think it looks pretty good, though. Alright, so I've got the Xerius purple now on the first part, and you can already tell the difference of how it's going to look when you compare it to the upper carapace here. And then I'm going to bring in the gray to do an edge highlight and probably some lines as well. I am excited. It's looking good. Question is, do I want to come this? Which way do I want to hold it to get the back part here? I think I'm going to hold it like this. But I started with the, not just because it's what they recommended, but I started with the two center pieces of the army, basically. So the rest of them are going to be kind of bland as far as interesting painting goes. So hopefully I'll get the rest of my army done real quick. But I have had a lot of fun painting this particular one. I feel like I'm losing a bit of my tip, so I may have to re-wet it here in a second. But yeah, figuring out where to place these highlights has been the challenge, but I think I'm getting a little better with it. Been watching a lot of videos on how, you know, light looks three-dimensionally and how it, but then I'm also trying to realize that, you know, I don't have to be perfect with that. Like, this is a sphere, so you gotta kind of a dome shape, so that's right there. But you don't have to follow physics exactly. But this front part's probably going to be the most challenging as far as highlights go, because of the dome shapes. I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. Just trying to get the edges here of this. Little hole in her carapace there. And see, I made that one a little longer than I wanted to, but it's alright, I'll turn it into an edge highlight here. Now I'm starting to move paint around a little bit because it's getting dry, so I'm going to wet my brush. But I think I'm going to end up going to orcs for my third army, which I think is going to be a lot of fun to paint. I don't know, I might go back and forth in between like batch painting my starter set and then maybe like picking up one figure that I think looks interesting to just to keep me interested, because it is a lot of fun to paint different stuff. I don't know, we'll see. But orcs or battle sisters is probably where I'll end up with my next army. I'm trying to make this part a little longer than what I want, because I want to have room to come in with the gray, with the smaller more focused highlight. And all the while get more controlled brush strokes and learn how to do that properly. I've got this thing's got a really fine tip. I'm impressed. As long as I don't put too much pressure, I can make a really thin line, which is neat. That's the advantage of spending a little extra on these expensive brushes, I reckon. But I can make these edge highlights a little thicker because, like I said, again, I'm going to be coming in with that gray. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to be putting that, but I do want to have a lot of lines coming off the edges of these scales just to look cool. Now that's a lot more opacity. So I'm going to go back and hit this just to make sure it blends in well. It was almost like that first layer I put on was like a glaze consistency, but I didn't add that much water. Maybe I just had that much water in the brush. Like if we're going back to glaze here. So I think with the first highlight you're supposed to do like quite a bit, like 60% coverage, but I'm more like 33 or less. But I'm liking the way that's looking. So I'm going to continue doing it that way. I'm really liking these little stripe motions to keep it from having that broken edge, real sharp edge in the wrong direction. Gives it a bit of a grainy look for the scale. Yep, I do. This particular one, I bought as part of a set. It was called the Ultimate Starter Set. It has several figures, like 50 or so. And it was like $180. So it's an expensive hobby, but I really enjoy it. I know down the road I want to get a 3D printer and start printing my own. Just maybe not necessarily Warhammer, but just different figures to paint. When I went to the Games Workshop store this week, I looked at Calgar, which is not Calgar, Guilliman, which is the Primarch for the Space Marines. He's kind of the originator. That's in the story. All the Space Marines factions have a Primarch, which is kind of like the father of all of them. That's where their gene seed is what they call it comes from. But anyway, Guilliman, just the figure for him was $70, and I was like, wow. I'm probably gonna get him just because I'm gonna want him eventually. But I was surprised at the cost, which I shouldn't have been, because many people have said that this is an expensive hobby and I should have been prepared for it. But yeah, I do buy them and paint them. The paints I've been using have been Games Workshop paints as well. which I think was a great way to start learning, because they have some pretty good tutorials on how, I mean, they're the ones that made the models, so. And their paints have a satin finish. What that means is it's not matte, and then it's not super shiny. It's just satin. It's in between. So I like how they look, especially for these slimy bugs. I really hope I'm doing this bug some justice with my highlights. But I guess when it's all said and done, as long as I think it looks cool, that's all that matters. But one of the reasons why not only do I enjoy putting so much attention to detail into it, I also look forward to people seeing how awesome it looks. You know, everybody loves a good compliment, so I guess that's part of human nature. I say guess, but we all know it is. Get a little more paint in here. It's going to increase that opacity. Make it a little more noticeable on these hard edges. And opacity just basically means it's got more pigment per in the paint, and that just makes it more visible and it's not as transparent. So when I'm talking about opacity, I'm talking about how transparent the paint is. So if a paint isn't very opaque, you would have to do several layers to try to get a solid color. But if you don't thin down your paints, you're going to build up a lot of texture that you don't want, or may not necessarily want. No. I started just with the highlights. So all of the base coats I did off stream. I did record it. I'm going to try to make time to make a video of how I did the base coat, just to show how she got to this spot. But no, yeah, I did I put up quite a bit of hours, probably I would say in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 hours into her to get her to this point. Just here and there throughout my days. 2-3 hours at a time. Just come home and relax and throw some paint on one of these bad boys. I can get hyper focused and do some creating, something that not only I enjoy, but I'll be able to keep on the shelf, or in a cabinet, in my display cabinet, for years to come. It's not only relaxing, but it's rewarding because you get something out of it at the end. Which is another reason why I don't mind spending the money on these kits. because, you know, as long as something catastrophic doesn't happen, I will have these things for as long as I live. And maybe just pass them down and give them to somebody else. So I think that's cool. And then they'll have something that I created to remember me by, so that's fun. Now this one, the scale goes all the way down. So now I don't have to focus on stopping part of the way anymore. Man, that looks cool. So now yeah, for sure. I've done a time lapse of a previous stream, so I figured out how to do that as far as editing goes. So I will, if I edit together, putting her together or painting her, I will definitely have a time lapse. Well, I'm liking how these highlights are really bringing out her shell here. And I'm really trying not to get bogged down on it. I get on the details like I did with my Space Marine. And really just enjoy the process, trust the process. I'm sure I'm making all kinds of weird faces. I don't know if you can see them when I'm so focused, but these little edges, and I almost guarantee I'm making a funny face. But man, it's a lot of fun. I remember when I put my first base coat on my Marine, it was just a bland, normal Space Marine that I was practicing with. I was surprised at how simple it looked without highlights, and I thought, man, how do these people, their miniatures look so much cooler than mine? And then that was before I even thought about the concept of highlighting. And I'm still not, you know, fully versed in, you know, placing the perfect highlight or where to highlight or how to highlight even. But that's part of the process of a new hobby, is learning it. Having fun while you're learning it. But as I was watching the videos, when I was learning how to do this, they were like, oh yeah, well, you know, highlights, you just gotta know where to place them. That was like one of the first videos I watched, and I was like, oh my gosh, it seemed so daunting. And it was. But the more you think about how the light's supposed to fall and just get used to it, I guess. I've got a long way to learn, but this particular model is made out of plastic. It's molded plastic. And it's acrylic paint. But they come in what they call a sprue. Just like whatever, any model that you've ever, like a model plane or a model car that comes in the flat plastic panel that, with all the little pieces in there that you pop out. So they come in a sprue like that, except with the hobby, most people, and I went out and bought some snippers, so that there's less damage or weird pieces poking out. So you basically clip it away from the sprue, and because these models are plastic, you can use plastic cement, which essentially melts the plastic and causes it to bond to each other, just like welding metal together, only it's with plastic. And you put the pieces together, and then I sanded it down, used a hobby knife to get the pieces down. I even put a little, you can kind of see the drips there. I kind of put tried to fill the gaps as much as I could, just to make sure it's smooth and it looked good. So building the model is part of the process. And then you put down a primer on it, which I used a spray primer from Citadel. I think I primed this one in Wraithbone. And I learned moving forward I want to use more darker colors, not just because that's what they say to do, but because I've noticed when I've missed spots on the Wraithbone base coat, it really shines through because it's bright white. But if you base coat in a dark color, like a black, and let's say I forgot to paint something underneath there, it wouldn't look as bad because it's supposed to be a shadow or whatever. So not so much with her because she's a very bright underbelly, but with the Space Marines for sure. But when there's also models that are made out of resin, 3D printed out of resin. I don't have any of those. That is something that I eventually want to get, as a resin 3D printer. You can't use the plastic cement with the resin because it doesn't actually melt down the resin and make it stick. So when you build a resin model, you have to use super glue, which you can use with the plastic models as well. They just don't bind together. The pieces don't stick together as well permanently. Now the base I've made out of stuff that I've either found or bought. This rock here is actually cardboard with a putty around it, a sculpting putty. This doesn't have any sculpting putty. This is just straight cork board. Sorry, and that's what the rock is cork. And this is cork board. This is metal. This little skull guy, I got a Citadel set of just skulls, so that is plastic. And then I've got coconut fiber down for the dirt or earth texture on top of AK texture paint, which is made to look like dirt. And that's what's on top of this clay, is a stone from AK terrain, a stone texture paint. And then once that dried, I painted it all gray, put the shade on, and then did the highlights for the stone. This is a rock that was given to me by a friend named Rick. This is a little rock that I found. And I was saying earlier, like, that is a birch tree seed to look like a tiny leaf. I'm going to be putting a lot more of those on the base once I get it together. But this plastic model had stands. They're covered up now because I wanted it to blend like she was standing right on the rock. So I used that texture paint and covered up the little base pieces of this model. And just to basically give it more, make it more visually cool. So it's not just like on a flat base. Because that's what this came as, was just super flat, super boring. And I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to make it cool. So I did. That's what I did to make that a little more interesting. Oh, now I'm almost done with this side. Once I finish this, I'm going to try to remember to do this and the little scales on her side here. I think I've only highlighted this top here. Oh, sorry. This top here, I don't think I've done any highlighting here or there, so I need to remember to do that. Alright, brush. Who's got the brush? Here we go. Need some more paint now, please. So I don't forget, I am going to go ahead and highlight the tops here. Make sure they catch some light. And I don't know if it's with me handling it, but I keep getting these white spots like right there. So I gotta be careful when I'm moving this gal around not to take all that hard work off with my fingernails or just rubbing it and taking the paint off. That's not cool. And as far as these go, I think I'm just going to highlight this side of it, because that's the side that I'm going to imagine the light's coming from. And now to get the bottom here. I think it's turning out pretty well. I'm liking how it's looking. I don't know how much of the gray I can fit on there, and hopefully I'm not going to cover up everything that I just did with the gray on some of these smaller places. Ooh. Alright, now back to the edge of these scales. And I think I've kind of settled on about 50%. I start about halfway with each one of these strokes. And then when I come in, I'm going to really just edge highlight with that gray, I think. The best that I can, anyway. Go a lot thinner. she looks. I think that's a pretty good highlight there. Now, I guess I can go ahead and get this leg so I don't forget it, and then get the sides, and then get the butt. I don't know if I'll actually get to the gray today, but we might. See, there's another one of those white spots I was telling you about. So I'm just going to see if I can't boop it up and cover it up with this highlight color. It's just crazy how I just keep rubbing it off, I guess. Because I know I'm not missing it a bunch of times. See, there's another one. Just super bright white where I've rubbed it off. Losing a little bit of the tip on my brush, which is no bueno. So I'm going to re-wet it. I just got a bunch of this size brush. But in my synthetic brushes, which is what I use the most of the time because they're cheaper and I don't have to be as delicate with them. All right, there we go. I got my tip back. With my new mix, it seems to be a little more opaque again. Which is okay. It's also moving, I don't know. It's not layering up very well. Very watery. So scratch what I said about being opaque. I don't know if it's really glaze consistency per se. But it's definitely thinner than the other, what it was before. That's okay. We'll make it work. Plus, I don't know if maybe there's dust on this leg, and that's why it's not sticking as well. It's probably the water. But I'm just coming up with theories here. I didn't really want that one with that thick on the top, but I had those white spots I wanted to cover up, so that's what I just did there. I'll go back to the 50% mark. Ooh, that went up a little high. See, this one's not on the leg here. It's not really covering the way it did up top. It's almost like the surface is being hydrophobic. But it still looks good. Now getting to that is going to be a pain. So I'm just going to be real careful. Try not to get anything on that flesh. Man, I think that's about as highlighted as that's going to get, because that was stressful. Cool, cool. Now for the butt. Yeah, let's get rid of that white spot. Put quite a bit there. It's really hard angle to get those little thin lines like the texture that I had on top, but I'm trying. This one really struggled with keeping the paint on it, looks like. I bet as I play the game, that's going to continue just getting white over time, just keep chipping away. Another reason why I shouldn't stress too much about the details, because I am going to be playing a game with these, so there's no sense in stressing myself out. It's supposed to be relaxing and fun, so I will let it be. Go back to try to get in that 50% mark on where it falls on the scale, about halfway, and bring it down. Oh man, I just thought about Bob Ross again when I was talking about relaxing and having fun. I remember he used to say happy little accidents when he was painting. That and happy trees. You gotta have both, happy accidents and happy trees. Alright. Well, now the butt's done. Now we just gotta get this side to match the other side. How am I going to hold her? I'm probably going to hold her like this, so I'm going to let the butt dry for a second. And use this opportunity to get some more water on my brush. Get that tip back. Take a stretcher here and chit chat for a minute. It's hard for me to see my screen because that's exactly where I have my mic set up today, is right in front of my screen. That keeps it out of the way of the camera, and it allows me to look this way while I'm painting, and hopefully you can still hear me. Man, my beard's all lopsided today. I don't like it. Which is it this way? Yeah. It's alright. But yeah, I've had a pretty good weekend. been enjoying the games this weekend and actually making myself relax because it's been kind of a busy week. I'm going to get me something to drink while this butt dries a little bit, and then I'll come back and we will hit the other side of that carapace and get the other leg, and then come in with the gray and just get the edges with that. But I will be right back. I'm back. While I was getting a drink, I did go ahead and grab my other little guy so you could see him if you hadn't before. This was the first one I ever tried painting. And that to kind of give you an idea of the scale. This guy's a lot smaller than my Psychophage here is the biggest one I've done so far. But this guy was my first Space Marine. And he was my learning experience and a lot of fun. And as you can see, he's not as highlighted as my Psychophage is right now. He does have a little bit of highlights, but I remember when I first painted this thing blue, I was like, wow, that looks really bland. And I try to get some char on that. Just coming from this guy to now, I feel like I've made a lot of improvements. Oh, you need to focus down here. But he's pretty good for a first try. And then I did this little bugger. He's a Tyrannid. He is a Termagant, I believe. Yeah, Termagant. And he's got his little shooter there. And he was my first attempt at this type of alien. I ended up stripping him down and trying several times when I was painting this guy. Again, to give you an idea of the size, he's tiny as well. And then we've got the other captain. I've got other streams and other highlights of streams where I painted this guy. He's bigger. But that's my captain. And he's got some blood splatter on him because obviously he's been fighting something like this big alien. But that's how I started out doing this and ended up doing this, and now we're on to the Psychophage. But like I said, this was just like a practice getting started kit. The captain was the first model out of my ultimate starter kit, standing on the head of a Tyrannid down there. And I just broke the sword. Oh no. I'm gonna have to glue that later. Gotta be careful with him. I also learned how fragile these things can be with this guy. Emphasized just now with this little pummel on the sword. It is about to fall off. It's gonna need glued on eventually. I just hope I don't lose it before I get it glued back on, if it falls off. Which I'm sure it will. It hurts me just to think about, but it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. I promise. I'm not upset that I just bent it and made it almost fall off again. Not even a little. It's fine. Anyway, back to the Psychophage. Oh man, I forgot how much heavier the difference is. Because I've got so much crap on this base, this thing is a lot heavier. Just aside from being bigger, it's got actual rocks and it's got all that cork. Makes it a lot heavier. Alright, one more drink. Re-wet my brush and we'll go back. For some more highlight. How am I going to hold it? Like so, I think. That's right. I'm letting her butt rest on my hand. That's why I had to let the butt dry. It's like getting out of the shower. You got to let your butt dry first. Bring some more paint over. Trying to get my tip back just by spinning my brush on my palette here. And come in and highlight this bad boy. I don't know. I mean, as far as the physics, light physics go, there wouldn't be much hitting this side, but we can't just leave it flat. because that would be boring to look at. So I don't know how much I should highlight this side, but we definitely need to highlight it, right? Make a little dome highlight here a little bit. I definitely feel like the paint is not acting as it was earlier. I don't know if it's just dried out sitting on my palette or I'm doing my brush strokes differently. It's fine, it looks cool. Doesn't seem as opaque as it was earlier either. But yeah, it looks good from the front. And I don't think I went a full 50 on this first part, so I'm not going to do that on this side. I'm going to try to keep them the same width with the highlights. Just bringing out the contrast in the edge of these plates. On the carapace. Ooh, look at that white. Ew. Just trying to match the other side as much as possible. So the hobby has, or the Games Workshop has a competition, painting competition called the Golden Demon. And this little guy is not going to win any Golden Demons, even though I want to try to, make her look her best. I know that I am just getting started in the hobby, so I can't stress too much about how she looks, especially because she's not a display piece. I just gotta remind myself that she's a game piece. So don't stress, Terry, just enjoy the process. But these highlights are definitely making a difference on the way she looks. sure you guys got a good view of what I'm doing here. I don't know, this ridge is tough. Just these little openings in her carapace. I did a lot of back and forth trying to get the colors to be solid and look good. This side's definitely a lot harder, just the way I have to hold her. But, you know, it's okay. I'll just let her butt rest in my hand and get these strokes on her. Now I'm going to go back to that 50% mark, which I don't, like I said, I don't know if that's what I did on the other side, but I think at this point it was about 50%. See, now I'm starting to get that paint to move around. I don't know if it's too thick or if it's just drying out on me. Doesn't seem too dry on the palette. We're getting her done though. I think she's looking pretty. But this has become, like, when I'm not playing multiplayer video games, this has become one of my favorite things to do, just to pass the time and get something out of it in the end. Just the way the light's hitting this, it's making it harder for me to see the distinction in the color. There we go. So I just needed to hold her different. She didn't want to be held on the butt anymore. I had to get closer, so I want to make sure you could still see my pretty face. So I don't know if I will get to the grade today or not, but I feel like if I get this finished and I get this first highlight done on the carapace, that I'll have made some significant progress on it. So I mean, it's really hard to see at this angle with the naked eye. You guys might be able to see a little better on the camera. And with your non-colorblind eyes, but you know. I think I do need a little more water in the paint here. I'm just going to go ahead and mix this all together now, just to make sure I get a consistency across the whole thing. Yeah, see, that's an opacity I can see. I may need to go back across this just to... Yeah, that's much better. It was just getting too thin, I think. Maybe it wasn't because I was holding her butt. Oh no, oh no! Getting a little too lackadaisical with my brush strokes. It is harder to see from this angle. Alright, going back to her butt. I'm not going to stress too much about those details though. I'm getting little spots on the top of the scales where I don't want them, but I'm trying not to stress out about it. Still looks good. This part of the scale too is acting hydrophobic like the butt was. It may be just because it's been a while since I've painted her. And I've got that wash pretty thick through here. So that might be the case as well. I'm trying to, make sure I'm precise with my brush strokes, but also improve the process to where I'm not taking forever to get one model done. So finding that balance has been pretty challenging. But I feel like she's turning out really well. I mean, she already looks great. And we're just making her look better. Need to go a little thicker on these though. There we go. I'm matching the other side now. Looks good. Now I'll get this Xerius purple on this leg, and then this part of the highlight will be done. Gotta get rid of those white spots though. That's so gross. If I ever decide, you know, at one point that I really enjoy the hobby and I want to take it to the next level and do some commissions for people, I'm gonna have to find that balance between trying to make it perfect and speed, because I can't charge people out the butt for a bunch of hours on, you know, something they're going to be playing games with. And they don't necessarily need it to be perfect, but at the same time they don't want it to look like crap either. Why did I put that on the butt? Because it was white and it stuck out. And you don't always see white butts sticking out. Usually they're pretty flat. I kid. All right. So I think that's gonna about do it for this layer. I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Okay. Now, the question is, do I want to try to tackle the gray today? It's already kind of... This paint I put on my palette's already kind of separated as far as the pigment goes. It's not mixed together at all. Let's see if I can get it smoothed out. Let it sit there for too long. I should not have put it on at the beginning of the stream. Put it on the palette, that is. I'm gonna have a little break while I decide if I'm gonna attack the gray today. I mean, I'd like to, just to have the carapace, so I can say that the carapace is done. But it would probably take me another couple hours. Maybe an hour, because it's thinner than that layer of highlight. I don't know. But I think she's looking good. Get that gray on there. And a few spots. Let me think about it, guys. Let me know if you have any thoughts on it. Alright, I think I've decided that I'm not going to tackle the gray today. Had some fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you for the questions, Aiden. Next time I'll try to make sure my beard's not all crooked. I'm sure it doesn't bother you guys as much as it has bothered me. But I need to get some food in my belly, get some supper, get my laundry done, get all relaxed and recouped and ready for work tomorrow. So thanks for hanging out tonight, guys. If you haven't already, subscribe. Get those notifications for when I sign on. I've been trying to be consistent on streaming on Thursdays, but the past 2 Thursdays I have not. I've had other obligations. I apologize for that, but I will try to stream this Thursday, whether it be painting or playing some Civ. I may go back into trying to play some of the Rogue Trader. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully we'll see you Thursday, but if you also just want to see some funny game clip content, that's also on my channel. Give me that subscribe and give this video or any video you see a like. It helps out my channel. And thanks for coming, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.